can you spank your kids in Oklahoma? I'm also Attorney James Worth, and that is the question that we have. Corporal punishment in Oklahoma. Are you allowed to spank your kids? Is it against the law to use corporal punishment in the state of Oklahoma? Well, the law is pretty clear. Sometimes in practice, we see it a little bit different, so you do have to be cautious. But essentially, we've got Oklahoma statute that defines what abuse is, and there's an exception carved out, and we also have DHS, CPS, Child Protective Services, that do investigations, and they've got also the same sort of language that carves out reasonable or appropriate discipline in the form of corporal punishment. However, who defines what is reasonable? We've got the statute that has language that would indicate that reasonable can be pretty broad, and then we've got DHS's interpretation, which is a little more narrow. So we have had a lot of clients that have had issues with DHS where there's disagreement on that, so you do have to be careful, but let me tell you what the law says. So Title 10A, Section 1-1-105, and then that is subsection 2, which has the definition for abuse. And it says abuse is harm or threatened harm to the health, safety, or welfare of a child by a person responsible for the child's health, and goes kind of on and on. It has very broad language defining what abuse is, but then it has this exception. However, nothing contained in the Oklahoma Children's Code shall prohibit any parent from using ordinary force as a means of discipline, including but not limited to spanking, switching, or paddling. So we have similar language as an exception to any criminal charge for child abuse. We also have it in the Children's Code here. So it specifically says you can use corporal punishment as long as you're using ordinary force, spanking, switching, or paddling. All right. And then we've got similar language dealing with DHS investigations, which notes parental discipline involving the use of ordinary force, including but not limited to spanking, switching, or paddling. In that case, the investigation or assessment will proceed no further, and all records regarding the incident shall be expunged. So it's ordinary force in spanking, switching, or paddling. The investigation shall stop, and the records shall be expunged. Okay, so what we've seen in practice is DHS uses a rule that if the discipline leaves a mark, they consider it not to be reasonable. However, that seems to defy the statute, because if you're going to be using switching, that means, taking a small limb off of a tree and spanking with that. My belief is that that's understood that that is going to leave a mark, meaning that the legislators who put this into law understood that disciplining appropriately using ordinary force in switching would leave a mark, and that is contrary to what we see DHS and how they operate, where any mark they consider to be abuse. But I think the statute is clear. I think sometimes you have to fight against DHS on those types of allegations. But if the question is, can you spank your kids in the state of Oklahoma? The answer is Oklahoma law clearly protects the parents' and guardians' right to do that through ordinary force, including spanking, switching, and paddling. If you've got a question more specific than that to your circumstances, you're going to want to talk to an attorney privately and confidentially. To get that scheduled with an attorney at my office, you can go online to makelawEasy.com.